Welcome to the Epic Cosplay and You panel, hosted by epic cosplayers, including Blizzard's very own Jessica Johnson and Christina Sims.
Hello. Hi there, Blizzcon. So how many of you guys are cosplayers? Oh, nice. Happy to have you here.
We are very, very excited to bring you our first ever Epic Cosplay and You panel. And we're going to talk shop with some of BlizzCon's most talented cosplayers that have graced our stages.
Absolutely. We are incredibly excited to bring you our guest panelists. We've got Lorraine Torres. Come on, Lorraine. We have Avery Faith. Woohoo! Laura Jansen. And then last night's winner, Svetlana Quint. Woohoo!
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'll let you get settled. All right, I think we're set, so we're going to kick it off. First off, welcome to Epic Cosplay and You.
We would like to show the slide. Excellent. So our hosts, those of us, we've got Christina Sims, most well known for her monk cosplay, but she's also an integral part of our Hearthstone community team.
And to my left is Jessica Johnson. She is part of our cinematics team and has done a pretty accurate StarCraft Ghost.
Thank you. And then if you don't recognize our panelists, we're just going to give you a nice introduction of like what they're most well known for.
Lorraine is most known for winning our BlizzCon 2009 contest with the Mistress of Pain. Avery Faith was our BlizzCon 2011 winner with the Adjutant. Laura Jansen was the creator of the Epic Gamescom winner, the male barbarian from Diablo 3. And you all are familiar with the winner of the contest from yesterday, Svetlana Quint. All right, so we are going to dive right into it. But first off, what is cosplay?
Yeah, and what makes cosplay different than the costumes you're going to wear during Halloween?
Lorraine, why don't you tell us a little bit about what exactly is cosplay?
Cosplay for me is it's basically my way of expressing my love and gratitude towards the games and that I'm really interested in. And what better way to do it than to dress up as a character and really bring those characters that you get to see and play in the games to life. So that's what it is to me.
Avery, what about you? What is cosplay to you?
Kind of the same thing. Like, I'll watch movies like Lord of the Rings and be like, doesn't it suck that you'll never see like an actual orc in real life? Like, I really want to experience this stuff. So my point with my cosplay is to make this stuff look like it stepped out of the screen into real life. Like, what would this character wear if they were real? And it gives me an opportunity to take on like another persona. And yeah, it's a way to change who you are and explore different realms of things that you're really passionate about.
Laura, you've created some fantastic costumes. What kind of things inspire you to make cosplay?
I really love to bring the characters to life. I really love it to create it because I have so much characters especially from computer games I love, and it's so fun to bring them to life and to walk on a convention and be this character. This means very, very much to me.
Awesome. And inspiration can come from a wide variety of sources, whether it's video games, whether it's anime. Svetlana, what kind of things inspire you to create a character? What do you look for in a character when you're making a costume?
For me, it's much more, yeah, well, my dreams. I mean, when I'm really creative, I'm not able to start with a costume when I still didn't dreamed about it. So for me, it's cosplay really bringing my dreams come true. And yeah, well, it's video games are really inspiring, but I think cosplay is especially, well, bring fantasy to life.
Awesome. So when we're going back to our slides here, cosplay inspires everybody a little bit differently. Whether you're taking a character from a game that you love and wanting to bring it to life, it's really all about expressing your passion through art.
Oh, absolutely.
And being able to show it off to the world and being able to show it off at venues like Blizzcon is an amazing experience for all cosplayers.
Absolutely. And just having the opportunity to show it to like a crowd of people that are just as jazzed about those games and those concepts is really special. And it's special to see that in real life too.
So now that we've got an idea of what exactly is cosplay, and at the root of cosplay actually means costume play. So we dress up, we have fun, and at the root of everything, we're having a good time. So now that we know what is cosplay, let's talk a little bit about how do you guys make this stuff? How do you guys take something that's so intricate in artwork and bring it to life in a three-dimensional sense? And this can be very, very difficult because things that are existing in fantasy artwork don't necessarily translate well to real life.
Oh, that's true. Gravity has no like concept in concept art. And actually, this is really useful for all of you guys in the audience. We really wanted you to walk away with new knowledge, or at least new ideas of how to approach costumes in your own time. And who better to learn it from than award-winning cosplayers? Lorraine, can you tell us about some of the crafting materials that you use a lot, but also just what household items you've found that were extremely useful and you didn't expect?
To make any cosplay, you can use basically any materials you have at hand. I have come to a point where I'm using materials like Warbla and Wonderflex, which are both thermoplastic materials. You heat them up, and they'll take the shape that you want. They'll adhere to themselves. I use that kind of material to make something such as a headdress, like you see here. Even details that you find on the headdress and even other parts of my costume are made using this heatable plastic. You use fabrics, you use anything you can for piping, the little gold accents. Household items, Sharpies, X-Acto knives, I mean, you name it. A necklace that you may have decided not to use ever again can be part of a costume.
It's really that versatility that really separates cosplayers, because if you take something as boring as cardboard and you can make it into something out of this world, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of talent. Now let's take a look at these pictures here. Lorraine, what is happening in that left picture?
Okay, so we have the headdress in early stages. Basically, it's what you see the white part there is used basically for, you got the, I'm sorry, you have the craft foam and you have the Wonderflex sandwiched. So it'll be Wonderflex, craft foam, Wonderflex, and the idea is to create strength to support such a big, structure. I later upholstered it with using the spray adhesive. You can get that at craft stores, and fabric, of course, to get the look that I was after. Basically, after that, it's step-by-step layering of all the materials that I kind of mentioned before.
So in the right picture as well, you could see a crazy-looking boot and as well as a half-destroyed house with cosplay. What percentage of your house is destroyed when you create a costume?
I'd like to say 100% of my house is destroyed. My boyfriend can attest to that.
It can be a very, very messy process.
Oh yeah, and it's not just relegated to the garage, it's every part of your house.
Yeah. So in the second picture, Lorraine, you've got a couple other things going on. Is this the evolution of the Izan hat?
That is correct. This is, again, the hat, and you see my heat gun there. It's the yellow, crazy-looking contraption. That thing is great. Be careful. It is really hot.
So things like heat guns, they're used to actually heat things like Warbler and Wonderflex to get them to soften up so you can form them into anything, right?
That is correct.
What other things in your Izan costume did you use Warbler and Wonderflex with?
Virtually anything. I used it mainly for the hardware components, anything that's gold and looks fairly solid, like all that is Warbler, basically.
Very cool. So moving on to Avery. Avery, we've got some of your crafting materials here, and there's a lot of bottles that may not be very clear to the audience. Can you explain, starting from left to right, what kind of things go into your cosplay?
Yeah, on the left we have a variety of acrylic paints, and actually there's an enamel paint there, which is a really, really great base paint. Like Lorraine was saying, you do things in levels, so you start off with something that you might not think would look good for a piece, like these pieces started off with that black enamel paint to give it a nice base, and then when I brushed the gold that's in the middle, the gunmetal gray that's in the middle there, it was a little translucent, so you get a bit of the black showing through, and it makes a really nice kind of like a, like hewn metal look. And then you add the light colors for detail, for highlighting, and then some stain in the, carving and runes and that to give it a little bit of depth. And it really just completely changes the look of it. It makes it look real and tangible. Then we have the sealer, which is super important because it's so terrible to do a great job on a paint job and then be like applying your highlighting and rubbing it and it all comes off. So I seal between every single layer. In the middle, I have a little tiny bottle there of Tester's metal paint, which is great for if you're painting any kind of paint or like want to change hardware. I'm fanatic about details, so like even on my Garona boots, the original hardware on them was gold, so I went and hand painted every single little thing with the silver so it matched. In the middle, I have a molding paste, which I used on the adjutant because it was my first time working with Wonderflex, and it was terrible and lumpy and looked awful. And I put on the molding paste, and it really filled it out and gave it a really nice finish that I didn't have to sand or anything. And then that's Hobby Light underneath it, which is for repairing little tiny dents or cracks or anything like that. You rub it in, it basically turns into like almost like a balsa wood, and then you can sand it out. And then next to that is Gesso, which is like a canvas primer for artists, but it makes a really great cover for any kind of, for Wonderflex, Warbler, any kind of foam. But it's really rough. It's almost chalky, so you have to put on a lot of layers of it and sand it out. It's a lot of effort, but you can create beautiful, smooth looks. And it's a good alternative to Bondo that isn't as chemical and doesn't require as much work. And then on the right is my absolute favorite glue, E6000. That's a spray version of it, but there's also a gel version, and there is a craft version, which is quick drying, but it's much more liquid, almost like a crazy glue. And that stuff's amazing. The gel and the spray stuff take about 24 hours to set, so it is something you want to do like beforehand. It's not like a repair thing, but the hold is unbelievable. And then the front, I've got some Sculpey, which is great for making little details. Like if you want hardware that doesn't look like you went to Home Depot and bought a bunch of bolts, you can sculpt your own. I actually used a candy mold and then pushed the Sculpey in, and the candy molds just look like these little gems for all of the rivets and hardware on Garona's outfit. And then also some foam glue. It's really important to have a huge variety of glues because I ruined a very beautiful commission doing E6000 on foam, and I thought it would be beautiful to hold the pipe in the middle, and then I picked it up and it eaten through the entire thing. So you really want to make sure that you have the right materials for the right the right stuff that you're working with. Same thing with paints and whatnot. It's awful to have a gorgeous finished paint job on something like this foam, and then you spray it with an aerosol sealer, and you just watch it going and falling apart in front of you.
One of the things about cosplay as well is when you're a casual cosplayer, you don't have access to things like labs or great factories where you can crank out pieces of armor one after the other. Everything is really meticulously handcrafted, generally in your house or apartment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being able to see craft foam like at a hobby store and be like, oh, I could turn that into armor pieces with the right amount of paint and glue and clay. And using the Sculpey clay actually to make your rivets is a really smart idea because it's much lighter weight than the metal pieces you'd find at a hardware store. But then also you get to, oh, I really wanted to find that one particular screw knot thing. And no, you actually just get to make exactly what you want. And Sculpey is a bakeable clay, so it ends up being really easy to use because once you bake it in the oven, it's solid and permanent, and you can paint on it, and you can really put it in your costume and use it however you need.
Just one thing about cosplay is you always want to remember that some things do produce fumes and some things are innately unsafe, so don't keep your heat gun on and walk away.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we all have our battle scars from cosplay, whether it's a burn or maybe we've spray painted in the house for some crazy reason. Or is
Felt
that
a little
that just me?
lightheaded. Yeah, no, that's me too. Actually, reading the warning labels is super important.
Yeah. So always be safe when you're cosplaying. So, Laura, move on here. I'm sorry, Avery. We've got some additional tools here, and these are things that you can pick up at like any of your local hardware stores. But let's start with the weird green thing on the left. What is that, and how did you apply it to your cosplay?
That's a hot wire cutter, and that's really good for cutting foam to get really clean edges and stuff. It gets a little bit of a ripple and stuff because that's this old janky looking machine, so there's actually much nicer ones. But I use that one particularly because of the inconsistency in its texture, because I wanted the beveled edges on my sword and my axe. The yellow on the right is a heat gun for any kind of Warbler Wonderflex. You can also use it on EVA foam and on craft foam, are both heat sensitive as well, not quite to the level that Warbler and Wonderflex are, but you can shape a lot and mold to get your base shape and then shape your Wonderflex and Warbler over that. Under that is a Dremel, which I use for all the weathering and battle damage, and then under that is a soldering iron, which is good for LED stuff or for doing detail work, like the runes on the weapon. These in here were all cut out with the soldering gun.
And these things you can keep in your garage or your home, and they're relatively safe as long as you know how to use them.
Yeah, those all belong to my dad, except for the heat gun. None of those are mine.
So with the actual raw materials, let's take a look at this slide. And there are a bunch of just rolls and weird colors. What are these things, and how did you apply them to your cosplay?
On the left is a big roll of EVA foam. This is the stuff you find on like gym floors or like children's play mats. You can get it at Home Depot. I actually got a huge roll of that at Ross for like $15, and it was like yards and yards and yards of EVA foam, so it was a great buy. And that's great for making things like really intense armor that would be really big and heavy, but you don't want it to look heavy. Things like Halo Spartan stuff, Space Marines, they use tons of EVA foam for super big armor pieces. The one in the middle is Wonderflex, which actually you can buy it from a couple places. You can buy it online, but they parcel it out. I actually went to the local retailer in LA and started up a business account, and now I get it in bulk with a discount. And I did that 3 years ago when I didn't have any kind of credit to my name at all. So it doesn't really, you just have to go out and make the connections. In the front there, the pink and the white is pink insulation foam, which you can get at certain Home Depots, but it's kind of hard to find. I think it's a weird zoning thing. You can't get it in certain parts of LA and Orange County. And then PVC foam, which is great PVC pipe, which is great for handles on things like this that are, non-lethal and fairly light. And then on the right, on the very top, I have super easily accessible things. That's just craft foam like you get at Michael's or Joann's with some caulk-saver from Home Depot. It's used for like filling in gaps in caulking or vents and that kind of thing. And then underneath it is all the stuff that you need to cast resin gems and stuff, which is much more expensive, obviously, than the things on the top, but just as easily accessible. You can go to Michael's or Joann's and get that. And it's resin, a catalyst, and a quick-set silicone for making the molds. So you make a mold of something, or you pour the silicone around something that you'd like to have the shape of. You can make it yourself out of something like Sculpey or clay, or you can have a pre-existing emblem or something like that.
So these things, not only are they accessible, but they're actually rather inexpensive. So anybody who wants to get into cosplay can actually get these things at their local hardware store or craft store and get started. And the best thing about cosplay, and possibly one of the worst things, is trial and error. Sometimes you'll spend hours working on a particular piece and you're working really, really hard and maybe it doesn't work out, but you just want to try again.
Oh, absolutely. Or sometimes it doesn't turn out and then you keep working on it and somehow can transform it into something actually kind of useful. But yeah, because of the low cost threshold, a lot of people can get into doing really incredible cosplays on their first go.
So Laura, we've got some tools of your tools of the trade here, and a lot of them are similar. And you are also from Germany, so we might see a couple things that are a little different.
Yeah, these are all the tools I use usually for my cosplays. First, we have the big blue heat gun. This is my favorite tool because I use it very, very, very often because I work with thermoplastic materials like Warbler, and you need it to heat it up. So the heat gun is the most used tool, and especially we have scissors. You need scissors for everything, and a cutter, then a marker, or I always use soldering iron for ornaments. When I burn something into EVA foam, you can burn ornaments in it, or for every electronic stuff, you can use it. And there we have, I think it's a screwdriver. Screwdriver? Yeah, okay, it's right. Yeah, you can mold. I use them for molding when I make ornaments, just pushing them into the hot Warbler. Or, yeah, what was the word for the hole punch? Okay, yeah. Yeah, the hole punch when I work with leather. And yeah, and this thing in the middle.
The rivet setter?
Rivet setter, yeah. Rivet setter, and the hammer for all the rivets I put on my leather things. Yeah, these are all tools. And especially the brushes for all my painting stuff. These tools I use for every costume.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You have a lot of paintbrushes, and I know I have a bag that just collects over time. Eventually, you just amass a
Sacrificial paintbrushes, actually, for like when you're using glues or anything. Yeah, I've got a lot of those too.
yeah. Cosplay is not complete without a cosplay helper.
Yeah. I have my cosplay helper, my little cat. She's always by my side and she always helps me. Sometimes she carries some stuff away. I must search it. She always carried away my craft form. She loved craft form. I don't know why, but she's very crazy. And yeah, here is a picture where I got my new role of Warbler's Finest Art, and she loved to go in and say, yeah, that's my place and that's my Warbler. She really loves it when I'm crafting, and that's pretty cute. Yeah, and here you can see some materials I use, some fur, some fake fur. I always use fake fur because it's easier to handle, I think, and it is better because no animals have to die. And yeah, especially the Warbler's Finest Art. It is a thermoplastic material. You can heat it up with a heat gun, and then carve it in every form. You can mold it and something like that. It is perfect for every type of armor or yeah, things like this hat you can use it for. And yeah, I have bought some shoes. Every custom needs shoes, and that could be very expensive, so I always buy very cheap shoes, because the most time you don't see the shoes at the costume, because when you build an armor, the shoes always have a plate over it or something like that, and when you want, you can glue it on, but then the shoes are broken because everywhere is glue. So there are some techniques to protect the shoes. You can just, I don't know the word, you can take a leather stripe and put it around the shoe.
Kind of like strapping the armor on the shoe, but not actually gluing it on.
Yes, of course. So you can use pairs of shoes for more costumes. So that's only for not only for one. And down there are some packages of what's the word for?
They look like little buckles or
Tail rings. Yeah.
very cool.
D-rings,
There's a lot
D-rings and
involved.
buckles. Oh yeah, I always use D-rings and buckles for the fixing armors, and I have massive on them at home, and yeah, I always use buckles. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So these are some examples of thermoplastics that cosplayers commonly use to create amazing works of armor. Laura, what are the pellets, the yellow stuff, and the white stuff?
The pellets is Warblers Deco Art. In Germany we call it Deco Art, but I think in the US it is called friendly plastic. These are, you can heat it up, and then it gets a sticky, some sticky stuff, and you can mold everything with that. Later I show a picture where you can see how to mold it. Then we have in the middle we have the Warblers Finest Art. It's also a thermoplastic material. You heat it up, and then you can carve it, or you can make every armor thing you want. And then we have the Cobra Cast. This helmet especially is made of Cobra Cast art. It's very lightweight, so it's very good for big things like these horns. And this helmet, when you want to make something big like this, it is pretty good when it is lightweight, because it's very hard to wear a costume the whole day, and when you have to wear it 8 hours or 10 hours, it's pretty good when it's very lightweight. Yeah.
Svetlana, you created an absolutely epic costume, and it's actually an original concept. Explain to us what your costume was, and explain to us a little bit about what materials you used in your costume.
Yeah, I mean, I created the Protoss Wizard, which is basically just a BattleNet portrait, so my reference artwork was only a hat of a piece of art, and I basically designed the whole costume down from the chin by myself and tried to mix the design from the wizard from Diablo with some Protoss armor, just to find out how a Protoss wizard would look like in real life, and how many, like many guys of you already mentioned, Warbler is a pretty popular material for armor, which was also the basic material for my costume. You can also see it here. So it's, like you guys said, you just heat it up, mold it, bend it, and then when it's cold and stays in the shape. I also used a lot of electronics. I hope you see it, because it's pulsing right now. It's not just glowing, and the goal of my costume was not, I wanted to make my costume more interesting, not just glow it up, but really let it move. Here, do you see, guys? I have no idea. But I used a central power source, which is here on my back. It's actually just a mobile charger. I use it also here in my staff. And for the costume, I used an Arduino. It's like a microcontroller. And when it comes to cosplay, it's not like, I'm not an electric engineering guy, stuff like that, but I really teached everything by myself, and also how to program the lights of my costume. And if you want to find out how to make such a costume, or how to use all these materials, we use it, just Google and search for some tutorials on YouTube, or Google for our names, for example, and you will find our Facebook pages, and will find a lot of progress pictures of our costumes, and maybe this help you out to make the costume for the next BlizzCon.
Svetlana, you've actually done a lot of tutorials online to help people with cosplay as well. So if they want to Google your name or your actual website, Kamui Cosplay, you can find a wide variety of tutorials to help you along the path. So thank you very much for doing those.
Sorry, I Svetlana's tutorials for the gems on these ones, for the coloring and everything.
And
So
I used it for the hat as well, so.
Yeah, the internet has actually made cosplaying even more easy for people just starting out, because so many people are willing to actually step up and share the work that they do and share the way that they've solved the problems of creation. And actually, I think we're going to talk about a little bit more of how they took those raw materials together and how they put them together to create the whole crazy costumes. Because I'm sure you're like, oh, I'm looking at these little pellets of friendly plastic and I have no idea how that becomes a mold or a gem or a piece of armor.
So in our next slides, we're actually going to talk a little bit about the process and putting everything together. Lorraine, in this first picture, you've got a lot of sewing going on, and you've got some crazy legs coming out for your Mistress of Pain costume. Tell us a little bit about the very long sewing process that it took for Mistress of Pain.
The Mistress of Pain was an interesting experience sewing-wise. I'd never sewn anything like this ever. So I decided to take kind of a shortcut approach to this costume. I made every portion of it in pieces, meaning the front skirt, the front portion of the skirt that you see is actually separate from the back portion of the skirt, and then the corset is separate from the sleeves. This made it easier for me to, number one, put on, and number two, sew. A lot of drawings and concept, pre-planning went into it as well. You can't just start sewing just to start sewing.
How did you even schedule such a massive creature creation, and how did you manage your time knowing that you had, so many legs to do, but also so many finely detailed costume pieces?
Very carefully. I basically had to juggle work. I worked as a stewardess during this time, and basically juggling my flight schedule against the sewing schedule, and it was interesting. But I managed to do it. If time allowed, or if the trip was long enough, I would take pieces of the costume with me and hand sew instead of using a machine to do the sewing for me. So portions of that costume were actually hand sewn.
That's crazy dedication. Moving on to our next slide, Lorraine, we're going to talk a little bit more about your Mistress of Pain progress. You've got the little monsters on the side and the crazy headdress as well. What went into making both of those, and how did you get the headdress to work without pulling your head slowly backwards?
Well, I'll talk about the little side monsters real quick. I used cardboard as a base for this, and craft foam for those black layered pieces that you see on the top. I just figured it would keep it light and wouldn't weigh the hoop skirt that I had under the actual dress down, which it's true, it worked. And then as I was looking for kind of a rough texture for the side portions of it, and it just happened that I walked outside my parents' house, and I saw this tree that was molting, and so I went and grabbed wood chips right off the tree and glued them straight onto the side, a little spray paint, and I had the perfect texture that I was looking for that piece. As far as the headdress is concerned, that was trial and error over and over again. I ended up securing that piece to my head using some strategically located ribbons. I had one that would come right under my head, and then one that would kind of go forward from the headdress. It was kind of a mess every time, but somehow I would get it to work.
That is a lot of crazy work. Now, for this year, you made an amazing Izan costume from Diablo 3, and we've got the headdress here along with some step-by-step processes. Did you have any mishaps when it came to making this costume?
Yeah, actually, this mishap happened the day before BlizzCon. I was working on fine-tuning some last-minute details. That sewing needle you see went straight through my finger. Yep, I had to pull it out myself, and it hurt very bad. So
you're okay, right?
Yeah, Band-Aid. So I'll survive.
Suffering for your art, I'm sure.
I bled for it.
But showing the process a little bit, you've got this big crazy hat, and you seem to be fond of big crazy hats that balance on your head precariously.
Yeah, that is your talent.
How does this one exactly stay on? It seems to be very well balanced on the wig head, at least.
This one especially had to be balanced. The rear of the hat is actually, because there's so much, it's heavier than the front. So I had to do a counterbalance in the front, which actually ends up being, if you can see, a big ball of expanding foam that I sprayed in there, and it stayed. Even then, it's not fully balanced. I'll just hold it. But to finalize the stability of it, I added this black string that you see in the front and tied it really tight around my chin.
and hope for the best.
Yeah, hope for the best. And it worked out, so I'm pretty satisfied with that.
It looked amazing.
Thank you.
All right, Lorraine, we've also got Avery. And you have some axes that you made for Garona and some very interesting like boot covers and braces. And these are also some more like commonly used materials such as insulation foam. And is that the stuff that keeps your keeps air from going into your garage?
Yeah, on the leg bracers in the middle, the light gray stuff is just the caulk saver, which I've used for everything. It was my savior during the adjutant. It was all this stuff, and I would go and buy out Home Depot. I just buy bags and bags and bags and bags of it. So I was originally going to use that, and while I was there, I saw this. It's like a vent seal for a garage door bottom. So it has the perfect little ridge in it that looks just like that kind of WoW armor look, the really big exaggerated edges. So it was just absolutely perfect. I stuffed it with the caulk saver to give it a little bit of body, and then glued the edges down. On the very left, I have like the underlayer of the boots, which you can see I did the same technique on the leg bracer. Like I said, I'm obsessive about detail, so I hand trimmed and all those leather strips and then laid them out so they made the perfect kind of Loki crisscross. And then on the very right, I have the pink foam, which is just carved out, and that's these pieces before any kind of weathering or paint or anything. So you can see, it starts off looking really basic and you're like, oh my God, this isn't at all what I want. And then you start getting a couple things and then you go, oh, wait a second, this is what I'm looking for.
And now with your adjutant, it's a totally different process. And this year you made Garona, and when you won the Blizzcon costume contest, you stepped out on stage in this crazy costume that was basically your own design from the waist down. What is happening here?
Well, I have a wide range of interests, and one of the things I love the most in art history is trompe l'oeil, which is basically it's a trick of the eye. So I like doing things that take something that defies gravity or wouldn't be possible, like the fact that adjutant doesn't have arms from the elbow down or body from the waist down. And I thought, how can I make this portable and realistic? So I used basically a black backdrop for everything. I've got the black hood, which hold on one sec.
There's like a couple separate pieces going on here.
It's totally like Lorraine said, it's really, you want everything to look cohesive, but it should be easy and manageable. That way if something doesn't work, it's not like the entire piece is ruined, you can just fix it. So this is the base piece, which I just basically glued on all kinds of wires and tubes, and I kind of made this little brain pattern with this Rex lace tubing. And then this is just an old headset with a paint job, a little mic attached. The face mask I actually kind of stressed over because I thought I was going to have to make this crazy thing out of Wonderflex. I found it really interesting. The adjutant has like this head that's coming apart with like steam vents coming out the back of it. In my favorite art of her, she's got this really exaggerated like 5 head going on. So I really wanted that look, and when I was at actually like a Party City, I found this really basic like creepy baby mask that had this big forehead. So I cut it off right at the lines where I want my real face to show through, and used the same paint job on the edges that I then used on my mouth, like down here and stuff. And then that way it just all blended in. And the weight of the back of this and this is counterbalanced by the fact that this pushes onto my head. and I just used like a prosthetic adhesive, Prozaid, or Prozaid, however you want to pronounce it, and just used it to stick to my face. And you just put it all together, and suddenly it looks like you have this big crazy face, and then your real face can emote and move and, you know, is actually functional. And I used that same effect basically on my arms and legs. The lower part of my arms were in basically these big bags that had wires sewn all over them, and I would tuck them into my other wires and just keep them comfy there. And same thing with my whole lower half was a black skirt with just wires and tubes, and I made it as a hoop skirt so it was bigger at the bottom, so I had more space to kind of fake out that wire look, and it also made it super easy to walk in because I could take a step and the whole thing would just move around me.
Crazy. All right, we'll move on to Laura. Laura, you made the Barbarian that we also saw in the costume contest yesterday. And there's some really, really clever techniques in this costume that make it pop and bring it to life. Tell us a little bit about your process here.
Yeah, here you can see the sandwich method. I always use craft foam in the middle of the armor pieces. I take 2 pieces of warbler, and in the middle there is a layer of craft foam that makes the armor pieces stronger and harder. So yeah, they don't get broken so fast. And after I put them together, after I heat the warbler up and put them together, I just draw I wanted to mold. I draw just a little picture on it. Here it is a skull, just to look where I have to mold it. And then I start to work with the pellets you see before. These are the white little pellets. Just heat them up and they get something sticky. And then you can just mold them. It's pretty easy. You can make especially those skulls, or you can make spikes or teeth or everything you want. It's pretty easy to work with it. And here you can also see how I make the horns. The horns are very, very lightweight. I carved them out of dieser Schaum. PU-Schaum.
Great stuff. Heißt das in
expanding foam or great stuff, you call it. And I carved it out so they are pretty light. And then I cover the horns with cobra cast, and then I cut them off and take the horn, the inside of the horns, take it out. So the horns are just made out of cobra cast, and so they're very, very lightweight. And the cobra cast sticks very good to itself. And just heat it up and put the horns on the helmet. The helmet is also made of cobra cast. The inside you can see it. I don't paint it. It's always white. Maybe it's better when you paint it. But now you can see it here. The horns are screwed on, so I can take them off to transport them. The first time I don't think about to transport the horns, and it was all one piece, but it was not a good idea to make this because I want to take them to the Blizzcon, and the suitcase wasn't big enough, so I decided to cut them off and just screw them on. It was okay, but when you do something like this, just think about it, how you can make it that you can put it in different parts. It is even better to transport it. Yeah,
being able to actually take this crazy big costume that you've created and put it in a piece of luggage that's only yay big actually takes an additional layer of preparation and not just the creation of the costume. Especially if you're transporting something big, like if you're a Terran Marine or something, you should probably have a plan of action if you're going to be bringing something like that to BlizzCon.
Yeah, and especially since I know that Svetlana actually had to adjust her costume because she's coming from Germany as well, fitting it on the plane, getting it through TSA, some other things.
Svetlana, you have a crazy, huge staff there. How do you transport that?
When you want to decide to transport something big, especially in a tiny suitcase, I think planning is the most important thing. You especially have to pick up something you want to create that at least fit in the suitcase or in several parts. So the stuff I built here, I really choose only for my suitcase. I really wanted to do something really bigger, something more impressive, but I had 2 suitcases, and I brought 4 armor costumes with me, and also 2 big stuffs and clothes for me and my husband for 3 weeks since we're here on vacation. And so basically you have to plan your costume for the suitcase. What I do is I pick something small, and I created it in as many and small pieces as possible. So for example, this here is 1 part, then it ends here, and these are 3 parts which I just have to screw together. When I was at my very first Blizzcon, I wanted to bring a really big stuff, which was even bigger than this one, really much more massive. And this stuff consisted of 5 separate pieces. And when I arrived at the evening before BlizzCon, I spent 1 hour just to put my costume together and screw everything together, since it took so much time to build the costume together again.
That's crazy, and that's just amazing planning on your guys' part. So kudos for being both creative
planning
and
is everything.
transportable. Laura, you've also got a sword progress here, and you've gone from taking the PVC pipe and Ava foam and making it an incredible sword. So this is Warbler and just foam that you've sanded?
Yes, the foam, I cut it out, and then I sanded with Dremel, so you get this nice shape of the sword. And the ornaments are just, as everything is made out of Warbler, and the little stone in the middle I made with Svetlana's tutorial. And yeah, we all love her tutorials. And yeah, now I can see the picture.
But the sword is absolutely amazing, and having weapons as a part of your actual prop just helps complete the final look of the costume. And even in the last couple panels, you've gone from just the normal sword, and then you put some blood on it. So it just kind of enhances that effect of having the complete cosplay. All right, so we're going to move on to actually putting everything together and applying makeup, applying the finishing touches, and actually bringing that character to life by enhancing your natural look. Lorraine Freyzan, when you crossed the stage, you were very pale, you have very heavy eye makeup, you have a bald cap. What did it take to actually complete the look for Izan?
Izan was actually not as difficult as I anticipated. The most difficult part, I think, was the bald cap application. I'd never put one on before. A little bit of prostate adhesive along the edges once the cap was on. It's very easy to remove after, just a little work at the end, and you can get it all off. But it really held the cap in place. After that, I use my body paint of choice, which is the Kryolan Aqua Color. That stuff is amazing. I apply it with a sponge and just kind of pat it on. And you can create like amazing looks. You see my skin color, I'm quite brown. And I needed to be very pale for this particular costume. So I managed to get the look I was going for. I have a variety of colors as well that make it easy to create kind of like those subtleties, white on white, like I added kind of a yellow tone to the general, coverage of my face so that I could really show those white streaks that go across my face. And then, of course, eyeliner I used, to make that dark eye. I just use regular makeup eyeliner that you would purchase at a store. The aqua color is not something you can just walk into any craft store or any kind of regular shop to find. You have to go to a theater store, or any place that sells stuff for theatrical makeup, like costumes, that sort of stuff, they would carry this sort of product.
Yeah, these products are more of the professional makeup, so you can't just go into like the Halloween supply store and get like the grease paint. These things you can order online pretty easy, but it's always also good to kind of try them out as well, just to get that color just right. And thankfully, we live in an area where we can go up to LA and these things are accessible, but sometimes it does take a little bit of trial and error to get the colors just right. Now, you've also done an amazing makeup for your Mistress of Pain costume, which was even more white than Izan was.
Yeah.
But really,
there's
I want to
more.
hear about what you used for your teeth, because that's one of the most memorable pieces of the costume.
Yeah, for the teeth, those were a last-minute decision and last-minute purchase for me. I actually purchased those teeth. I wish I had the skill to make them, but these teeth, again, ordered online, and they are what they consider veneers. So they click onto my regular teeth using the same product that Laura was talking about earlier, the friendly plastic. It's just like literally a little like goop of that stuff that goes across my teeth, molded, and they click in, and they allow me to talk, and they don't recommend eating with it, which I fully understand, but I mean, it created that very dramatic kind of final look for the Mistress of Pain.
How horrifying would that be to see someone eating with those teeth and you're just... Avery, for Garona to bring her to life, you actually had to turn yourself green. So we're going to be all different colors on this panel today. But you've got the orc tusks. You've got various shades of green to kind of make your face pop, prosthetic ears, and you've got an insane wig that you are still currently wearing.
Yeah, this isn't actually a wig. I decided that for Garona, because her costume doesn't have any really big, impressive elements like huge armor or huge weapons or lights or anything, I thought that making her look authentic was the most important thing. So I was looking at all these pictures of her, and she had almost these cornrows. And I'm still fairly green with wigs. I'm not, I've just gotten into the world of wigs a couple years ago, so styling isn't my strong point. And I was thinking, well, I could do something. There's a whole world of wigs you have to think about. Like, if you want something that has a clean line from your hair to your head, you get something called a lace front, which is very smooth, but it's really difficult to find those in things that are already ponytailed, and she's got these two huge ponytails, so I had to kind of troubleshoot. If you just pull a regular wig back, you have the line and it doesn't look right. So really the only thing to do was to get these giant dreads implanted into my hair. So my real hair is at the base, and it's just woven and braided around it. So I can take them out. It's not like a ridiculous commitment, but I feel like it really added like another element to her and really like was her style. I did have the dreads custom made by somebody for me, but we worked creatively together to get a lot of the details in here, like the beads and teeth and bones and stuff that are in my hair. This is also like the importance of doing a test run. The girl on the right, her name's Vlada, and she made the dreads for me, kill hair, if you want to check her out. On the left is the very first time that I did the Garona makeup, so you can actually do like a compare and contrast to my makeup that I ended up using. Obviously, I changed the contacts. I changed some of the contouring. But that's another important thing, is something like contouring. You don't just want to paint yourself green, because it's it looks fake. It doesn't look right. So you have to think about things like the shadows of where a normal face would lie, like your cheekbones, your brow bone, your chin, down the sides of the nose. It sounds ridiculous, but watching RuPaul's Drag Race is a great way to learn contouring, because they just have the things those ladies do with their faces is unreal. So in the middle here is a lot of my makeup stuff, and you can see some of it is just basic like Target contact solution, MAC makeup, and then some of it is actual theatrical stuff. I normally use the Krylon Aqua Color for body paint, but since this was going to be all over and there was going to be a lot of flexing, I used the Cinema Secret silicone instead. You want to apply body paint always with a sponge, because brushes are streaky. It takes a little bit longer, but it looks fantastic. Or an airbrush if you're lucky enough to have an airbrush. And then the different things for the highlighting and the shading. The tattoos, the glimmering tattoos, were done with the Lumiere, which is a really, really nice shimmer that stays really strong. Sponges and everything. Obviously the prosthetics changed. I used different ears, so like I said, you want to do test runs. Yeah, and I get all my stuff from Cinema Secrets and Toluca Lake up in Hollywood or LA area, and they're fantastic, and they always have makeup artists on hand to give advice. So they've helped me. I hired them to do my very first costume in 2009 for my troll body paint, and since then I've had to rely on them less and less and less for the actual work. But when I come in, they're like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing this year?" So it's kind of fun to get the insider advice. And that's, once again, I'm not a professional or anything. I just made the networking and the connections by going in a whole lot and, you know, letting them know what I was interested in, and that it wasn't like a Halloween costume. You know, I wanted to take this to the next level.
Now, Laura, this is an example of one of your other costumes, Maiev, and you are very purple. Did you use similar techniques to Avery and Lorraine to actually get that color just right?
Yeah, I use the same techniques as she said, and I think when you want to bring a character to life, it's very important to have the right body painting. So I think Maiev wouldn't be Maiev if she is not purple. So I think it's very important that you make something. It's very long. It is very long time to bring on all the color. This body painting takes about 4 hours because I make it with a sponge. My boyfriend helps me. I even stand there and he is making the body paint, but it is worth, I think.
It looks absolutely beautiful, and you can see how actually body painting creates that cohesive character, because Maiev just wouldn't be Maiev if she wasn't a lovely shade of purple.
No, it's true, and it takes body paints and it takes tusks and contacts to actually embody a troll character or an elf character, to really take yourself away from being a human in armor, but rather be an entire creature or character.
Now, Svetlana, there's not a lot of body, I mean, there's no body paint involved here, but there's still an incredibly intricate wig and beauty makeup as well to enhance your natural features. What kind of makeup did you use for your Protoss wizard?
Yeah, well, I didn't use that much body painting, as you can see, but for me, I used pretty much more a stage makeup, so, you know, a little bit more than normal, but since it's a costume, it's pretty important that you highlight a little bit more than usual. And for me, a big challenge was the wig, since, well, it's a Protoss wizard. I tried to create these tentacles of the Protoss in a human way, and I thought, a human with tentacles would look pretty weird, and so I thought, what can I use? And I decided to create a wig with tons of dreadlocks, and this wig turned out pretty heavy, since it has a lot of extensions. It's a really heavy wig and everything, and I had then at the end of the day 4 or 5 pounds on my head, which were fixed with 40 bobby pins. And wearing this costume was basically pretty painful, only because of the wig, because the wig really tried the whole day to drag my skin from my head. And then try to keep on smiling the whole day while you're dying. Basically, it's not that easy. I'm happy that the day is over yesterday.
I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's just that kind of creativity by taking the Protoss tentacles and creating dreads that really separate the cosplayers from each other.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to show you the final product when everything is put together, because we're almost out of time for today. But this is Lorraine's finished product with the Mistress of Pain. And Lorraine, you've got some crazy casters down there on your feet. You're actually kind of wheeling yourself along, it looks like.
Yeah, that was my way of managing or rather weight management for the costume, because it was incredibly heavy. As light as I tried to make the legs, it was, material is material, and it's all heavy.
Yeah,
so
that bulk, you just don't want to be dragging it around all day. So that's obviously the very smart thing to do there. But you can see how the teeth, the makeup, every individual piece of the costume just creates that amazing character that you've brought to life. And Avery's finished adjutant, also amazing.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure she had the full 360 effect, where no matter where you looked at her, she had something going on. So some things I lucked out on, like the power pack on the back, was this horrible little TV radio I found at Salvation Army, and it looked absolutely perfect. So I cut it up, used the back for my back, and used the front for the flickering screen on the front. I made a huge error in judgment by having everything in this costume individually lit. So there's 148 individual LEDs all over her. There's endless amounts of EL wire. There's safety lights for kayaking in the shoulders. And it took about 2 hours to turn it on in the morning, and I had everything individually labeled so I could go by one and pull them off and turn them on. It was a pain in the butt, but it created a really cool effect. And plus, I'm not an electrical engineer, so it was just really the best I could do with what I had.
Absolutely
and
crazy.
Thank you. And yeah, like Lorraine was saying, the weight, even though I did that skirt with the hoop skirt and it was supposed to be really easy, that's still a 25, 30-pound skirt held up by basically suspenders, plus the pack on my back. Everything's kind of counterweighted against itself. So even though you're like, oh, this isn't too bad, it's comfortable, and then you take it off at the end of the day and your body is just like, thank you. And you know, you don't realize it when you get, even like the hair, like I'm kind of getting used to it, and then like I'll lift it up off my head and just be like, oh, this feels so good. So, you know, you find ways to manage, but it's never like comfortable, you know. And yeah, for like little details like the contacts and stuff, it really is, it just totally slams it home. Like even when you're doing the test makeup and you don't have your contacts in, you're like, it doesn't look quite right, and then you pop them in and you're like, oh no, wait, I am this character.
We are actually out of time, so we're going to show you the finished product with Laura's Barbarian as well.
It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely stunning, and Laura made an amazing Barbarian to go along with it. And Svetlana's final Protoss Wizard product. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you took something away from our cosplay panel.
And thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys for sharing all of your knowledge.
And thank you guys for supporting cosplayers. And if you see a cosplayer in the hall, just thank them for their hard work.
Yeah, because it's done out of love. But if you wanted to meet any of us just to talk later on, a few of us will be at the community stage.
Thank you guys again.
Thank you again.
Thank you for attending the Epic Cosplay and You panel. Up next, a simulcast of the closing ceremony.
that.
Well, they finally revealed some of the plot, right?
Hey, man. Except I can't remember the names of the characters right now because that's
But it sounds like it's going to be, this is, the thing I took away from it, they show some really cool concept art on this Warcraft movie that's coming at Christmas 2015, I believe, right up against, I think, the new Star Wars, believe it or not, because Disney moved that film back to December of 2015 too. They showed some concept art, and it sounds like this is not a World of Warcraft movie, it's actually going to be based in the lore, so the original Warcraft.
Yeah, it is. So this is an origin story. It's like Dungeon Jones said. If you have what is the basis of a good origin story, it is first contact, and it's where it all began. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to somewhere in the Eastern Kingdom. They wouldn't give us more specifics, but where's concept art of Draenor. So,
Yes.
Okay.
All tied together with the expansion.
All right. Well, they didn't say that. In fact, they would not answer that question. But it's the same story timeline, and it's the same idea of plot. Of course, in World of Draenor, we're going back into an alternate timeline, right? We're not actually playing out this story. So maybe this is what would have happened if the time hadn't been changed, and there's actually really good, there's a good point on Twitter that you guys were talking about, and it said that maybe one of the reasons they chose this expansion is because they wanted us to get to know these characters and pull out these characters and know these characters. Smart. So we're going to be playing in this exact timeline for 2 years before this movie comes out. So it does seem to be a very smart move. Whether it's delivered or not, I don't know, but it's what's playing out.
And Duncan also said that they have cast in place, they wouldn't announce who they are, and someone asked him a question about the cast, and he said, yes, we have cast, we can't say who it is.
We have lots of them. That makes sense because they're starting to shoot in January. But really, there hasn't been a lot of leaks. There's been the guy from Vikings, which seems to be confirmed, but they haven't confirmed it themselves. And there's other names that have leaked out, but that's the only one that everyone is pretty sure is going to be in the film.
Can you tell us about your role, Kat?
Yeah, I'm going to be not there. I'm going to be an extra. I could be a gnome.
Yes?
You could be a gnome.
It all happened, guys. You should talk to the director. He could have come by and visit. He didn't. But anyways, so that was big news today with the Warcraft film. And then, of course, there was a lot of news throughout the convention with a lot of new projects from Blizzard. Heroes of the Storm, I've been talking to a lot of people that have played it and said it's fantastic. I need to get over there and check it out. But a lot of good buzz on that. And it feels like that's becoming a big new game for Blizzard. I mean, look at the line right now. It's huge.
The line has been long for, every time I walk by, it's wrapped around. All the way around. And I think the last person I had spoken with waited for over 1 hour, at least 1 hour just to play. And they're going through more than once. Yeah. So I spoke to a few of the players in there, and they're playing 3-4 times, going through as many characters as they can, testing out the new battlegrounds, and it seems like it's being received very well. I think the last time we saw this much excitement over a computer area was Diablo PvP. Do you guys remember that? That was also in the room that we were in, and people were lining up to play it over and over again. Of course, there's no PvP here on the show floor this year, and they've abandoned that as a project for now, but it's exciting to see the people just going back and back and back and back.
Now, they also have the new Warcraft expansion here, things with like the new character models and whatnot. Did you get a chance to check out any of that? What's the reaction been for that?
I did. People are really loving this new expansion. The second
Chief. My name's Corey Stockton, and I'm the lead content designer on World of Warcraft. I think what's cool is to give players a sense of history from what they played in Burning Crusade. Burning Crusade, the planet was completely wrecked, it was destroyed, it was full of demons, and there wasn't even any water. It was basically floating islands in the twisting nether. So to get a chance to go to these familiar spaces and rebuild them in a way that feels familiar but with all new experiences is really exciting. The Draenor that people are going to be going to here is completely new. This isn't something like what we did with Cataclysm, where we went back to some of our older zones and did a little bit of rework, a little bit of touch-up to bring them up to speed. These are completely brand new zones, and they're reimagined in a way that they would feel familiar. So when you go to Shadow Moon Valley, it's named Shadow Moon Valley, but the look, everything that you're doing there is completely brand new. But certain landmarks will still exist. So a place like Black Temple in this time is actually the Temple of Caribou, which is a sacred place for the Draenei. I think Hellfire Peninsula is a very familiar zone to many players because it was their first intro into Burning Crusade. In this time, that zone is actually called Tanan Jungle. Turns out that that entire zone was this beautiful, lush, but extremely dangerous jungle. But what you're going to still have are things like the mountain ridges will still be in similar places. The Dark Portal, for example, still be in the same place. The time frame we're playing in, though, means that there'll be different landmarks, there'll be different races, there'll be ocean around the edge instead of just a cliff that you would fall off of. I think it's a cool example of how we'll take some place that feels really familiar, but really just wrap it up in a whole new experience. A couple zones that players might find familiar would be something like Talador, which is where Shatrath is located. Players would remember it as Terakar Forest in Burning Crusade. And we worked pretty hard to try to keep a similar forest theme, but to really build out what the Draenei Empire would have looked like in that area. In that same vein, Nagrand would be another great example of a zone that'll feel familiar yet fresh. So in this time and era, you're going to still see the homeland of the Orcs, but you'll see a clan there that's brand new, the Warsong clan. You'll really get to see how they lived in a zone, how they hunted, what they did, and I think it'll really offer a different vibe from what players experienced in Burning Crusade. There's a lot of familiar places that we ended up making changes to, but it was pretty tough because we loved them in Burning Crusade. A great example of that would be Zangar Marsh. And a lot of players feel like Zangar Marsh was a very iconic zone. It's very unique. It was lush. In this time, Zangar Marsh is mostly almost completely covered underwater. It's basically what we call this the Zangar Bay. So it's like a large sea of water, but it turns out underneath that bay are these giant mushrooms that are growing, and we're going to portray that in the actual expansion so that it feels like if people go out there and explore, they'll really get the vibe that, oh, this is what turns into Zangar Marsh later.
You disappoint me, Garrosh. You are not worthy of your father's legacy.
We've been inspired by a number of things. I think the Garrosh storyline offered us an opportunity here to want to explore orcs in more depth. And I think that kind of plays directly into kind of doing a change of scenery from what we had in Pandaria. And we really thought it was time to get back to something that felt more Warcraft in general, something that feels primal, a world of giants. It feels like the forest wants to kill you when you're inside of it. So I think the opportunity to go back here and explore the history of the original orc clans is something that feels incredibly Warcraft, but it also fits in very well with the story of Garrosh and what's been going on with him. So I think the players, it'll feel natural, but also, something that they really want to explore.
All right, we're back here on Blizzcon live on DirecTV. We've got some more great stuff for you guys before we head into the closing ceremony. And Kat and I are joined right now by Tom Chilton from the World of Warcraft team. Tom, we've been collecting questions all afternoon for you from fans. So as if you haven't answered enough questions over the past 2 days, there's still more questions from the fans. Well, ready for it. All right, we're ready to rapid fire. Let's just do it. Kat, you want to start with one?
We will. So we collected questions off of Twitter, so there might be some repeat from the Q&A if they happen to have missed it. So just run past it and we'll keep going. All right, so to start off here, not everyone heard the
little bit of a Draenor fit there. Dual pistols, not really a Draenor thing. Super cool idea. I would love to see it. But at some point.
Dual pistols is my favorite thing in any video game. Make it happen. Greetings from Brazil, from Pedro Games. Alcoholics here. I already have 11 max level tunes. When are we going to be able to get more on the realm?
Right. We increased that limit by 1 for Mission Paint area. So far, we're happy with where we are there because there's 1 slot for every character class right now.
Right.
And I can imagine us expanding that more if we were to add more classes in the game, but not something that we're planning to do right now.
Got it. Okay, another Moongans. Hi, how will exactly from Tony Montoya. He kills my thoughts. I think it's his real name. How will heirlooms be affected with the new armor system? Will weapons remain as shown in the example? Example, no stats, only attack power?
Right. Well, the new armor system, I mean, a lot of that is the item switch, and there's also the primary stats that can kind of go back and forth. All those will be updated to work under that new system where it's critical. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single one of those items will be changed, because most of what we're trying to solve is that going forward, when a piece of raid loot drops, let's say a piece of plate mail that would normally have only gone to paladins, we want to make sure that anybody that can use plate mail can get that. So it's a less of a priority to go back and retroactively change old items. So most old items in the game will stay exactly where they are. If there are any heirlooms that feel like they don't serve their purpose anymore because of the stat changes, then we'll update those.
Okay. So I think we can all be happy with that, right?
Everyone's happy, Captain?
First priority is getting the new gear. All right, got it. All right, so from T. Wilson Jr., again, are you considering offering refunds for the Reforged mount since it was so expensive?
No, I think what we really want to do is offer something that's really compelling in its place. And there are a lot of different options we have to pull from. I think transmog was one of the really popular options that was coming out as far as we can tell. So that's a possibility, but we'll have to talk about it more. We definitely want to do something that's really cool for it, though.
Seems like one of those things you'd want to hold on to right now, because I know you guys will come up with something fun that no one else would have a chance to have otherwise. Okay, character slots, we talked about that. Here's a lore question. Can you find out if Veritan Braum will know that Braum and Garrosh are their sons from the future?
I'm sorry, say again?
So when Garrosh and Braum go back, are their fathers going to know that they're their sons?
Right. We're not currently planning to have them know.
Really?
Right. Well, we just want to make sure that doesn't become a focus of the fiction, right?
That would be so cool.
It's definitely going to be a thing that, of course, Thrall understands, but he's kind of keeping his identity incognito. He doesn't want to make it weird.
Okay. I think it should be weird. Alright, no one asked me though. Okay, so here we go. We have more cross-realm activity going on. Alex wants to know what's going to happen with the Realm First level 100 for each class achievement.
Right. We are not planning to have those Realm First achievements.
Really?
Yeah. So what's going to happen is nothing's going to happen.
Alright, that answers that question then.
It definitely becomes much more of a gray area in the world of connected realms and stuff like that. And honestly, the Realm First achievements have always been for a couple of people in the world. So we don't really feel like we should have achievements that do strange things to the game just for a few people.
Fair enough. Okay, more about the mouse. Are we going to see any crowd control changes in 6.0?
What changes?
Crowd control?
Crowd control. Quite likely. One of the things that we've identified is we want to try to peel back the sheer amount of crowd control. I'm assuming that the person that asked the question is coming from the perspective of PvP. That's really where crowd control is a huge presence. So we'd like to kind of do some unilateral disarmament if we can to really chill out the amount of crowd control that all the different classes have. But we have to do that to all the classes at the same time.
Right.
for any kind of returning player that is already familiar with the game and knows that they want to get into Warlords of Draenor to just be able to buy one box and be good to go, even if they were creating a new account.
Okay.
Tom, one thing I wanted to ask you about was, a few years ago, I don't know, was you or someone had talked about how, you never go past 100, right? Level 100 and somebody said that. And now we're hitting 100. So where do you guys go after this? I mean, do you still keep thinking it's going to be expansion after expansion and expansion, or how far out have you planned for the World of Warcraft universe?
Well, we've planned in terms of, we know what the next expansion after this expansion is going to be in pretty clear terms. We have ideas of what the next one after that will be. We have a pretty good sense of where the storyline is going to lead in that direction. But as far as what the level cap might be, it's really hard to say. I could imagine a future where maybe we do an expansion that doesn't have a level cap increase, but I wouldn't actually assume that. I would say that there's a pretty good chance that we'll at some point go to the level either 105 or 110 or 120 or whatever it is.
And you guys are a lot of people reacted very positively to the character models for the upgrade, right? I mean, from a technical perspective, you said sounds like you planned maybe 2 more expansions out beyond this. That's a number of years.
Right.
From a technological perspective, is there a point where you're going to kind of revamp more of the technology and the graphics, do you think, in future expansions?
Yes, although incrementally. At least the plan going forward is to do what we've done in the past, which is that with each expansion, we try to incrementally improve the technology so that we can deliver kind of better effects and better experience and better art for players in general. And that goes for the world, it goes for the characters, the special effects, you name it. We feel like that's been the way to go, so there isn't like a before and after shock of like, whoa, everything looks really gradual. Yeah.
That was one of the questions we had on Twitter was regarding your technology capability right now, because they said the speed at which you're releasing content has increased significantly with Mists of Pandaria. They asked if you added resources or built new technology, how you're doing it.
Well, a lot of that is added resources. We have hired a lot of people over the last year. We've increased our team size to about 190 now.
Really?
Yeah. So whereas if you think about when we first shipped World of Warcraft, we were about a 65-person team.
Right.
So we have a lot of people on the team now, and we're creating a structure where we can essentially do parallel development, where we can have people working on not only Warlords of Draenor, but we'll have people starting to work on the next expansion after that.
Wow, already working on expansion now.
All right, well, I guess it feels like rhythm of like, would you eventually get to kind of like a yearly expansion? Is that the rhythm that you're thinking of?
That's the goal. I don't know when we'll get there exactly, but that's certainly the direction we're heading.
All right, fantastic. We'll hopefully hear more about that soon. We got a lot of questions on Twitter.
start of next year? Does that mean the goal is to try to bring it into summer or spring?
Well, certainly the goal is for before that, but we'll see. You know, it is very hard for us to predict.
Okay.
All right. A lot of questions are going on Twitter about night and what's happening sort of with nighttime. This one comes from Roy. He says, will there ever be an option for a darker night? It's lame to keep asking, but I miss the environment and feel. Right, right. Never say never. I can't say I would really prioritize that. I don't know how many players are clamoring for darker nights, but maybe everyone has a little something. It's something on that. That's the crusade. You got to prioritize. But then you guys are thinking 2 or 3 packs forward. Right. I mean, it's sort of like I almost feel now it's kind of like these sports games or something. We have to decide every year. It's like, what do you want to put in? What do you want to move out next one? What's our big feature going to be? You know, prioritizing all that. Every single one is really tough decisions. You know, I mean, it feels like every single Blizzcon that we have to say, well, you know, here are the things that we are delivering on that you guys were asking for, you know, like 6 years ago or whatever.
Right. That would be a great panel.
Yeah.
You only cover these are things that we're delivering that you asked for. I like that theme. We should do that next year.
All right, more coming in. People asking about characters. Roy is happy in Hawaii that we asked her questions, so that's good to hear. And Fabian's very excited. He said, I wanted to know for so long. Thanks for getting it answered. All right, we are...
We have one question here from Lisa. She wants to know, is there any talk or ability in the future to have Europe and U.S. cross...
all in the same kind of region?
Yeah. Cross-region play.
There hasn't been any talk. I'm not sure what we would gain from it other than, you know, it's nice to be able to mix the communities.
Right.
It's kind of tricky in that, you know, Europe has a lot of different languages, and, you know, in North America, obviously all of our North American servers are mostly English speaking. And then, you know, it gets a little dicey to try to mix those. We've already had to do kind of separate sets of servers in Europe for the different languages. So I'm not sure how much of a benefit there is. We're kind of mostly talking about UK players playing on really laggy US servers at that point.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense.
So Tom, you're here obviously talking to fans, you've done a lot of panels, people are actually playing the expansion over there. Tell me how do you use BlizzCon as a development tool too? I mean, you have surveys, people give you feedback on the expansion? We certainly do surveys, mostly for the experience that they can play on the demo floor. But beyond that, it's really more of a feel thing. It's kind of a vibe, gut type of thing. It's always interesting to gauge players' responses and see what they're really passionate about. I mean, it really took us by surprise some of the things that we were announcing today, we knew would be crowd pleasers, right? Like the inventory stuff. Totally. But, you know, the response we got to getting rid of, like, reforging, that really took us by surprise. I know a lot of players might go, you know, what? You know, why are you taking this awesome tool away from us? Yeah. So, you know, it was really amazing to see them, you know, has there been something at Blizzcon where you brought an expansion and you've done something that people play it here and it's like, we didn't really do that quite right, we need to go back and retool things? I mean, is there stuff? Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, generally all the content. I mean, we already have a laundry list of stuff that we think we're probably going to be changing about the stuff that people are playing on the show floor right now. I think that'll probably be further reinforced by the feedback that we get. Maybe, you know, skewed in one direction or another. Very fun.
So people know if you're here at Blizzcon, you are a developer tool.
I was going to say, you get to play stuff that probably will never be seen again. Well, Tom, we really appreciate you coming by to hang out with Scott and I and answer all these great questions from your fans. No question has been gone unanswered, and I know the fans appreciate the passion you guys have for the game. It sounds like we got a lot of expansion still to come. So we'll find out more about it. All right, well, thanks very much, Tom. Now we're going to head back to Blizzard headquarters to learn a little bit more about Hearthstone. That was announced back at PAX, and now it's playable, and open beta is coming next month. And what is the game all about? Let's head to Blizzard to find out.
I think the release of Hearthstone is really important for Blizzard. At a broader level, it's kind of a step out of our comfort zone. It's not all that big far of a step. It's a Warcraft game, but just being so accessible, right? And that's really exciting.
Previous to this, all of our games have been like 50-plus person teams and have been multi-year development cycles. And we really wanted to see, could we make a game that lived up to our Epic standards, but is much smaller in scope?
We're loosening up a little bit, and we're developing, you could say, at a smaller scale, but at the same level of quality, the same level of investment, the same level of passion.
And what we really wanted to prove to ourselves was that we could still kind of go back to that old garage programmer days of a small team accomplishing something really fun. Team 5. And the whole mandate for the team was keep the team very small, and you have to really think of ways to develop a game that might be non-traditional within Blizzard's walls.
As a team that was put together